Today, we're going to break down the devastating earthquake that struck Myanmar and Thailand. We're going to look at not just what happened, but the incredible science of why it happened and what this whole event means for the future of our cities. So let's dive in. You know, it really did start out like any other day. For millions of people across two different countries, it was just business as usual. No one had any clue about the immense power that was building up right under their feet. And then, just like that, in a few terrifying moments, all of that normalcy was completely shattered. An ordinary day turned into an absolute nightmare of destruction. All right, so first, let's just try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this thing. This was the moment the Earth truly unleashed its fury. The number that really tells the story here is 7.7. On the magnitude scale, that is absolutely colossal. The quake's epicenter was near Mandalay in Myanmar, which meant that ancient temples and modern buildings alike felt the full, devastating force of this thing. And here's what's so mind-boggling. The reach of this earthquake was just staggering. I mean, sure, the worst of it was in Myanmar, but the shockwaves, they traveled an incredible 1,000 kilometers to cause absolute chaos in the packed, high-rise capital of Thailand, Bangkok. Okay, so now let's zoom in on Bangkok, because you have to see how all that energy played out so far from the epicenter. The stories from people who were there, well, they paint an absolutely terrifying picture. Can you just picture this? You're way up high, on top of one of these luxury skyscrapers, and those beautiful, calm infinity pools, they suddenly turned into violent waterfalls, with tons of water just sloshing over the edge and crashing down to the streets below. And to give you a sense of the scale, take the Park Origin Thonglor Towers. These things are 188 meters tall, and people on the ground could just watch them swaying back and forth against the sky. I mean, what a horrifying sight. So as these massive towers are swaying, the sky bridges that connected them just couldn't handle the stress. They literally shattered, crumbling and sending a rain of concrete and steel down to the ground. And it wasn't just in the city center. On the outskirts of Bangkok, a whole skyscraper that was still being built just gave way. It buckled and came crashing down in seconds, trapping workers inside the rubble. The entire city was just gripped by panic. You had people literally abandoning their cars in the middle of traffic, running out into the streets. And inside buildings, it was a nightmare. Walls were cracking, tiles were exploding off the walls, and plaster was raining down from ceilings. Just total chaos. And of course, the human cost was just devastating. Across both countries, the initial death toll quickly shot past 1,600. And because the disaster was so widespread, rescue efforts were incredibly difficult. Experts were worried that the final number could easily climb into the thousands. Seeing destruction on this level, it just begs the question, how? We've seen what happened, but now we need to dig in and really understand why it happened. Let's get into the science behind it. So really, what kind of geological force is so powerful that it can cause this much destruction across 1,000 kilometers? Well, the answer lies in something called the Sagaing Fault. It's this massive crack in the Earth's crust that cuts right through Myanmar. It's what's called a transform fault. Basically, you've got two giant tectonic plates, the Indian and Eurasian plates, and they're trying to slide past each other. It's like rubbing two giant pieces of sandpaper together. They get stuck, pressure builds and builds and builds until, snap, they slip. And that sudden, violent slip, that's the earthquake. And let me tell you, this fault has a long, violent history. We have records of earthquakes here going all the way back to 1429. But here's what makes this one so important. In all that recorded history, a quake of this power, a 7.7 or higher, had only happened 4 times before. This was the 5th. A truly rare and catastrophic event, releasing centuries of pent-up energy. You know, an event like this really forces us to look ahead and ask some pretty tough questions. This isn't just a story about a natural disaster. It's a huge challenge to the way we think about building our modern world. It really boils down to this fundamental conflict, doesn't it? Our incredible ambition to build these sky-high cities versus the raw, unpredictable power of nature itself. And that leaves us with a really critical question to think about. In our relentless race to build higher, to reach for the sky, have we accidentally created a terrifying new weakness for ourselves when the Earth inevitably decides to shake?